Welcome to the Everything Financial Radio program. I'm your host, Dennis Tubergen. I am here every week at this time, and this is where we talk about what's going on in the economy and how it might affect your nest egg. Today, in just a minute or so, we're going to get to a conversation I recently had with the very colorful trends forecaster, Mr. Gerald Celente. It's always fun to have a conversation with Gerald, so we'll get to that conversation here momentarily. Also on today's program, we're going to be talking about economics and financial markets in plain English. Today we're going to explore what is money and what is the money cycle. Where are we in the money cycle, and what might it mean for you and your nest egg? I think you'll find the discussion to be important to managing your nest egg. We talk about the money cycle in detail at our new retirement rules class. And let me just remind you, we have a couple classes coming up. We have a one-day class coming up on Saturday, September the 27th. That class will begin at 9 and will conclude at 2:30 p.m. The cost for the class is $49. That's for you and a guest, and includes lunch. You'll need to do about an hour's worth of reading before the class if you decide to attend the one-day class. We also have a 3-night class beginning on October the 7th, continuing on the 14th and the 21st. Cost for that class for you and a guest is also just $49. You can get information on both classes or register while capacity remains by visiting our website, newretirementrules.com. The website, again, is newretirementrules.com, and that's the one-day class on September the 27th and a 3-night class beginning on October the 7th, continuing on the 14th and the 21st. Newretirementrules.com is the website. I am pleased to have back on the Everything Financial Radio program one of my favorite guests, Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald is publisher of the TrendsJournal. And, Gerald, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dennis.
Gerald, let me start. In your latest TrendsJournal, you have a headline and subheadline, "Don't blame Obamacare, blame I don't care." Explain to the listeners what you mean by that.
Well, we could have, and we do actually, one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the world. And you could even have it more expensive when it's not going to make any difference, for example, if the people don't care about themselves. I mean, we're looking at obesity rates that are off the charts and just keep growing. You know, I'm old enough to remember when there was no such thing as people going down the aisle of supermarkets in electric carts because they're too obese to walk. I mean, that's a new phenomenon, and now it's become the norm. And when you're looking at young kids with type 2 diabetes, you know, this didn't happen before. It wasn't part of our culture. Now it's becoming accepted. And again, you're looking at obesity rates of people overweight, and then you keep taking it, and you look at every level of I don't care. Get on an airplane. It's a flying circus. You know, one time you used to get on, people used to kind of get dressed up, and now they'll come with their bare feet. They're eating, you know, out of a pizza box. You look at people walking down the street. They have these big, you know, 16-ounce things that they're gulping away at or eating as they're walking. Go into a fine restaurant. You don't have to be finely dressed, and you could hear the conversation going on from tables, you know, 4 tables away. You know, people really, there's a whole breakdown of culture in so many different ways. And as we see it, you know, people have lost a lot of their dignity and their self-respect. So you can have, as we say, you know, don't blame Obamacare, but it's the entire system and the people behind it, and the people are the everyday people. So we broke it down into all the different categories of how we see a decline in society and how it's affecting things at so many different levels. For example, you know, we have a photograph in there of Sarah Vaughan, you know, great jazz singer. And next to her, Miley Cyrus, or Miley Cyrus, whatever her name is, you know, dressed up and looking like a freak as she's grabbing her crotch and sticking her tongue out, and that's what society promotes. So, again, you know, don't blame Obamacare, blame I don't care, because you're letting it happen or you're a part of it if you are a part of that.
So, Gerald, to what extent would you say that this decline in culture, as you stated, and certainly any of our listeners that are are my age or older can certainly identify with what you're saying. To what extent has this been the result of government policy that's been promulgated through the years?
Government policy is part of it, but, it's much deeper than that as we look at it. For example, we'll talk about the government part. Again, I'm old enough to remember when, people like Eisenhower, five-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces in World War II, he presented himself like a man. And then you had I'll never forget the elections in 1992. And Bill Clinton shows up on Arsenio Hall, wearing dark sunglasses and playing a saxophone. And now you see the presidents on with Jon Stewart or sitting around with the women in The View or late night TV yucking it up. So you look at that breakdown in culture. That's no place for a president. Sorry, it's a joke. They're bad comedians, And then you look at, if I was on your show and we're talking off the air, I said, listen, I got this great idea. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the penal system, and we're going to take the most violent criminals there, and we're going to copy their dress and their language. We'll call it gangster rap. And we won't give the kids any shoelaces or belts, because you can't give these violent criminals these things because they're weapons. They'll choke you with them. They'll kill you with shoelaces tied together or a belt. And we'll make a whole fashion statement and a music statement of it. And you'd get off the air and you'd say, boy, I had this lunatic on the phone. He wanted to take the most violent aspect of our culture and promote it as a pop culture. Well, they've done it. And it's become part of the language, part of the dress, and part of everyday life. So it's the media, it's the government, it's the education system, which is a joke. And so it comes from many different levels. There's a study just came out on obesity and how young children, it's becoming part of their DNA. Well, it's not like a 1-year-old kid or whatever, learns to eat on their own. This is what the parents are feeding them. Go into a supermarket, you see aisles of soft drinks. How about sugary crap? And all processed foods. So you can see where society's going, and that's for a major part of it. And by the way, there is a gap between educational level and health levels, but the gap is very minor. And so it's not only a lack of education, it's a lack of I don't care.
So, Gerald, let me go back to Obamacare, and let's talk in the time we have left in this segment about the economic impact of Obamacare. In your view, what has already been the economic impact, if any, of the Affordable Care Act, and what do you think the impact will be moving ahead?
It's going to cost all of us more. This is fascism, by the way. It's not Obamacare and it's not socialized medicine. We are being forced to buy health care from private groups. It's called the merger of state and corporate powers. And if you don't believe it on that one, how about too big to fail? Stealing our dough to give it to banks because they're better than we are. And all they're going to do is keep jacking up costs and giving us less services. And then being forced to buy it, what you're looking at, and of course they want young people to buy because your health care needs are less as you're younger, that takes money out of the consumer economy and other aspects of the economy. So you're going to start seeing it build more and more, and bills go up more and more as we are charged more for less services, and everybody is being forced to buy them.
Gerald, we have about a minute left in this segment, which would be just about enough time for you to let the listeners know how they could learn more about your work.
TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com. It's a 50-page magazine, full color, no ads. And we have a monthly Trends Monthly that keeps you up to date and ahead of the news and on top of the trends in between. Plus, we do a nightly, weekday Trends in the News broadcast, the real news, not the stuff that's being peddled out by the prostitutes. And you can sign up by going to TrendsJournal.com. TrendsJournal.com. I can guarantee you it's the only magazine where you're going to read history before it happens.
All right, I'd encourage the listeners to check that out. I would also encourage you to stay tuned because I will continue my conversation with Mr. Gerald Celente when Everything Financial Radio returns. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Everything Financial Radio program. I'm your host, Dennis Tubergen. I will continue my conversation with trends forecaster, the very colorful Gerald Celente, in the next segment. Always a pleasure to have Mr. Celente on the program. You know, in this segment, I want to share with you a little bit of feedback that I have been getting about the Everything Financial Radio program. I appreciate those of you that have taken time to give us some feedback. I hear things like, I really appreciate your perspective. I appreciate the way that you look at things realistically. You're not looking at things through rose-colored glasses. And I also get some feedback that maybe we're a little bit too technical sometimes about some of the topics that we talk about. And I've had some listeners say, you know, I don't understand what you're saying and how it applies to me all the time. So I want to work to change that. I want to give you a new segment each week that we're going to talk about economics and financial markets in plain English. And this will be the inaugural segment. We'll do this once in a while here on the program. And I thought about what to talk about in this first economics and financial markets in plain English segment and asked myself, what would be the most useful to explain? What would be the most beneficial to you? And I thought today we'd start with the basics. Just ask the question, what is money? Now, I know on the surface that might sound like a crazy place to start. After all, we all know what money is, right? It's the cool-looking green stuff that we all have in our wallets. Money's an asset, right? Or is it? Or is today's money debt? Well, I want to challenge you to look at something called a money cycle, something that occurs historically, and money changes over time. And this cycle has repeated itself time and time again historically. You know, originally money was something tangible. You can go back and take a look at tea leaves compressed into bricks that were used in commerce in the Far East. Early settlers in the United States used beaver pelts as money, and precious metals, of course, have been used for centuries. And really, when you look at it historically, there's three broad categories of money. There's hard money, which is typically gold or silver. Hard money has intrinsic value. The money itself is worth something. The second kind of money, the second broad category of money, would be paper money linked to gold or silver. Some of you may remember the silver certificates that were actually used in commerce in the United States and actually printed from 1878 through 1965. And if you had a silver certificate that had a $5 value on it, you could actually go redeem that for $5 worth of silver. So the paper money is redeemable for the hard money at a fixed value. And then you get paper money that has no link to gold or silver, like today's money, or you have the link loosened. And once this link is loosened enough, and you see that there are some adverse or bad economic consequences as a result, the cycle kind of goes full circle, and the money reverts to something that's a hard money system again. And you can see this cycle repeating itself time and time again throughout history. In fact, if you go back to the 1600s, gold was being used as money, and there was a business that developed in Europe. The business was that of being a goldsmith. The goldsmith would store your gold for a fee and give you a receipt for the stored gold. If you can imagine the commercial that the goldsmith might